I think that when people hear the word trauma, there's automatically like people get scared. And I don't even think that's just the general public. I also think it's with professionals, because I work with a lot of psychiatrists, I work with a lot of doctors. They hear the word trauma and they're immediately like, okay, somebody has PTSD. However, trauma can have so many different consequences, and it can come out and manifest in so many different ways, not just in a diagnosis, but just in our behaviors or the way that we perceive ourselves and we perceive other people. And in particular, with trauma, it's not just the event itself, it's also the interpretation of the event. Depending on our coping skills, depending on our family history, psychiatric history, if we had a safe place or a safe space or a person we could talk to about these events, it has a huge difference in the ways that we keep moving forward in life. And sometimes without having that safe place, that safe person, or even skills ourselves, we get stuck in this cycle where we're reliving, replaying the event over and over again. And sometimes I think that when people hear trauma, I feel like people fragilize individuals that have experienced trauma. And that's why I like to work with individuals who have witnessed, experienced, learned about trauma, because I'm a big believer that they are so resilient, right? They're here, they're breathing, they're doing something, they're doing it right. And it's helping to empower those parts of an individual to see how can you work to understand ways in which your histories or events or experiences have shaped your views on safety, right? Feeling safe with yourself and other people. And when I mean by safe with myself, how can I feel safe with my thoughts and my feelings? Because there's a lot of big thoughts and feelings that come up for us when we experience trauma, and it could be quite overwhelming, right? Looking at trust. Do you trust yourself? Do you trust your ability to make good judgments? Do you trust other people? Even boundaries and figuring out, do you feel comfortable being yourself and saying no, putting limitations, putting asks on the table? Or are you constantly, being overriding your needs for the needs of somebody else? And are you constantly looking for validation from other people, or feared if you do speak up or you do put your boundaries on the table, it's not going to be reciprocated or respected? Even looking at esteem and intimacy totally shapes the way we see ourselves in the world, and it gets in the way of us having a good relationship with ourselves at times, right? But I'm a big believer, again, like there's the wisdom in the wound, in the sense that there's so much of the event or our histories or experiences that sometimes get overlooked in the ways that we are doing such kick-ass work by ourselves for ourselves. And that's because we just naturally have a negativity bias, right? Where we're constantly thinking about the worst of the worst that's happened to us, because in an evolutionary standpoint, we're survival beings. We need to make sure we never have that happen again. And sometimes individuals that experience trauma, they get stuck in that cycle where their survival mode is completely manifesting in so many different behaviors and so many different emotions and thoughts, where they're trying to protect themselves, but it gets in the way of where they want to go in life. And just helping individuals celebrate and figure out ways in which they're helping to keep moving forward, and they can translate that to align themselves with the life that they want or the goals they want to reach. I think that's kind of what's missing in the world of trauma, and I hope that more people empower that framework, because I'm a big believer in shifting away from fragilizing clients who have experienced trauma, to shift towards like resiliency and empowerment, because those two pieces of the story, I think, kind of get overlooked quite often. It comes up in so many different ways in which you're trying to suppress or distract or numb or avoid certain feeling states or thoughts. So it can come in the sense of, just relying on external sources of soothing. So that could be substance use, that could be, pornography, gambling, internet, shopping, you name it. Just using those kind of external sources to keep ourselves happy, because there's a lot of things internally in which, we don't feel safe expressing our emotions or working through them. So needing reliance on something else. That's one way it can manifest. A lot of, self-hate, guilt and shame are huge when it comes to trauma, because we're often looking back at the event, replaying it to see in what ways could I have done things differently, in what ways did I mess up. So it really comes out in having, a really difficult relationship with yourself, where it's hard for you to love yourself, feel connected from others, and feel accepted by others, because that guilt and shame manifests in so many different ways, and huge avoidance, right? So trauma is perpetuated in terms of the consequences. It's constantly coming up over and over again by fear, because we're fearful of the worst happening again. So that could be fearing of leaving the house and being in public, maybe being intimate relationships. It could be fear of spending time by yourselves. And really understanding somebody's history and their story helps you recognize ways in which they're trying to keep themselves safe and survive, but helping them unlearn that they're not in trauma 24/7, and they can protect themselves, but not necessarily to the extent where they always have to be in that full-on survival mode.